All right, y'all, how's it going? I know for some of you, this is a much anticipated video that I said I was going to do and just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. But first, before we start this video, I'm going to go into what I do when I'm out here dragging baits, things I look for, things I want to, to see while I'm, out here fishing, not just catching fish, but I want to know where and why I caught them fish in the spots that I have. So, but before I get into all that, I just want to say right up front, okay, this is only what I do. All right, so this is not, this is not the only thing to do, because trust me, I've only been dragging baits for 2 years, and I'm still learning every time I come out. I'm still learning different ways to do it. I'm still learning, how to, as far as let the board out, weights, and how far back, the different floats, and there's just still a bunch of little things that I'm still learning along the way. Because trust me, there's people been doing this way longer than me. Obviously there's still some of the people that I've actually honed my skills on, from to figure out exactly what I do today. And again, like I said, this is just what I do. If some of this helps you guys, then awesome. Or you could take what I do, maybe do something a little bit different that better suits your fisheries or your style, would be the biggest thing I could say. But I'm just going to go over the things that I do, because I've been asked a lot of questions, and you guys know I don't mind answering questions. It's just tough to, when I ain't gonna say answer the same question, because that's not accurate, but the same general questions, right? So I wanted to just go ahead and come out here and do a video. This is going to be for, we're gonna run through the steps of what I do, what I look for, areas I do it in, and a lot of the reasons why. But first I'm going to get into, the dragging weights. Okay, so by now you guys probably know that I partnered up with Carolina Lake Weights, and for no really other reason than the fact that I love the people there. And there's other companies, other dragon weight companies out there. They're all great people too. It's just that no matter what, Jamie and Rebecca and them, even back before everything, they still took good care of me. So, and I wanted to help them out. And then of course, just do a little something extra for the catfish community and try to help out, a couple different businesses. But that being said, I've also partnered up with John Bubba New with his magic sticks, right? So he's also making these in a green and black, which are going to be my signature float, or signature weights. Oh, and also Carolina Lake Weights is going to make a straight black 3 and 4 ounce weight. That's going to be my signature weight they make also. But like I've said this in another video, these two weights, which everybody, I think when I did it, people asked me what's a slinky weight. Well, I would consider this a slinky weight, right? And this is a stick bait for obvious reasons. So one is a lot more rigid. This one here is, it's gonna allow you to get a little bit more, into structure, so to speak. But from my experience on this river here, because I'll drag through anything, I'll chance it, and risk it for the biscuit, they say. Because I know that if I could ever make it through it, if I could ever get that bait to come up and fall in a certain spot, the potential to catch a monster is there. And it has happened a few times where I've caught some big fish out of some pretty gnarly stuff. But anyway, so these two are, they're both 4 ounce weights. And the thing about this one is it gives me a lot better feedback on the rod tip. Now see, I'm just going to compare the two. That's why I've only got 2 rods out. But when I have it on the center rod, if you watch any of my videos, you'll see I've got 2 planer boards on this side, 2 planer boards on that side, and planer boards is something else I'm going to go over here later on in this video. But the center rod, I use that, and and why a lot of people don't run too many of them like that, I don't understand why. But I've caught some of my bigger fish on that rod that's just thrown out down the center. But also at the same time, like I said in the previous video, is that if I'm fishing a new area, a new spot, a place that I don't have a whole lot of knowledge of, and there's still plenty of that out here that I don't have a whole lot of knowledge of, I want to know what the bottom is, right? So I want to know if it's a sand or a mud, soft sand bottom, I want to know if it's like a pea gravel, maybe shell bed type bottom, or is it a chunk rock bottom, or is it just, you know, well, obviously if it's littered with structure, you'll be able to see it on your graphs. But I want to know. So for instance, the reason why I say that is I got a spot in Kentucky, a stretch in Kentucky, and what it is, it's a straight stretch of river. I mean, the channel's straight, but the bank has rock points that come out, right? And they're just points that come out. And so in between the rock points, well, as you come across the rock point, it's rocky. It's pretty rocky. You could see it, and pretty much, you know, I ain't gonna say I get hung up every time, but I have the potential to get hung up every single time I go across it. But once I get past that rock point, now it turns into like a slick mud bottom with some scattered rock. And so, and I can identify that by using a stick style weight, because this will give me direct feedback to my rod tip, where this one like this will kind of take away a lot of that. But this will sometimes make it through that stuff a little bit better than this one will. So it's all about what it is. But but anyway, back to that. So I noticed that when I went over the rock, and I could see it, like, golly, you know, hope I don't get hung up. But once everything calmed down, I was getting fish. So that day, it led me to have a pattern where I know that in between these rock points, there's a potential to have, you know, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 fish in that spot. So that was just something that I was able to, I took that by using this, and then I went to a different spot. It looked exactly the same, and then I could read the bottom with this, and then I could see that, you know, I was coming in the same area, and bam, caught fish again. So that was just a pattern for that day. But that's something I wouldn't have keyed in on, you know, if I was just using this. So like I said, for me, these two different style weights, they definitely have their purpose. If it's a place that I already know, if it's a place that I know that's got, you know, pretty decent little hang up, stuff like that, well, I'm gonna start out with this. I already know what the bottom is, I fished it before. Because the biggest question I get a lot of times is, you know, people watch my videos, they see me catching fish, and they're like, oh, man, you know, I don't know what I could do different, things like that. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know either. If you just take, you know, what the rest of the locals are doing or something like that, and you're doing the same thing, you know, I mean, obviously, for one, you got to look at their success, but sometimes you just got to do something completely different. And and I know a lot of guys that are asking me some of these questions are just getting into dragging baits, and they're not real sure where to even start. Well, I was right with you. Like I said, I've only been dragging baits for 2 years, and been very successful with it. And the only thing I could say to that question would be to just do something different than what everybody else is doing. That's the only thing you really can do. I'm talking, you know, bait-wise, location-wise, you know, just things like that. And I know that's not a perfect answer, but it's the best answer I can give you, because that's exactly what I did out here. Dragging here wasn't as popular as it is today, that I will promise you. Back before I was, you know, the state records and everything else like that, yeah, we had catfish tournaments out here, but it just wasn't a big thing. Did I see a couple people doing it, you know, throughout the years? Yeah. But now it's, you know, it is a far superior way to catch, I'm going to say, fish where they're, you know, in the summertime pattern. Then we're going to start transitioning to the fall pattern and stuff like that, because the fish get scattered. And, you know, like right now we have zero flow, so the fish are scattered and they're just chilling. So the best way to find them is, one, to cover water, and the best way to cover water is to, you know, have a spread and drag baits, and then hopefully drag across in front of one. Okay, so anyway, I guess what we'll do is we'll get into the meat and potatoes and stuff. You know, the rigs that I use they're super simple. I went over them before. You know, obviously my signature rods. I've got a couple other rods. And then of course I use the Penn Fathoms. Everybody asks me a lot about that. I moved to these because they're the place that I use, River Rat's Reel Repair, if y'all wanted to know, but he is a whiz at these reels. He can have them done, you know, unlike some other reels, you know, the Squalls too, some of the other reels, but I like it because this has it's 100%, it's aluminum housing is what it is. So technically, in theory, this should be the last reel I ever have to buy. Now, getting it repaired, cleaned, you know, new bearings, stuff like that, absolutely, that's just going to happen as much as I fish. But that's it. I run 40 pound Berkley Big Game Mono. I've used it for years. I used it since I was a kid. So there's a bunch of really good line out there, So again, I'm not saying this is, you know, the absolute. It's just what I have trust in, and I've had it for years. Of course, my leader line is I run 80 pound, again, Berkley Big Game Mono. I trust it, you know. I've caught some big fish on it, and I've never had a problem with it, so I'm going to keep using it. The hooks that I use, which is kind of a funny deal. You know, everybody sees me like, okay, so everybody, you know, says that I'm setting the hook. You know, okay, so when I got a board out, you know, I'm setting the hook. Okay, well, I guess, yes, technically y'all are right. But the biggest reason why I do that, and let me grab one of the boards here and I'll show you, is I run these Scotty clips. And so with these clips, you can see that you just pinch it down, then it just pinches your line. Well, to pop that board free, you've got to literally pop the board free. So that's one thing I do. That's one reason why I grab the rod the way I do and set the hook. The second reason is especially with, if I've got a lot of line out, well, I've got that coming off the rod, I got the line going this way, then it hits the board, then it comes back this way. So yeah, if they grab it and they take off with it, they're you know, by the time I get to it, they're pulling drag. Well, I'm just picking up on the rod because they pretty much done half the work for me. But if they don't, what that does for me is when I pop that rod up, is it all in the same motion. It pops the board free with this, and then it takes up that angle as fast as possible. So now I have pressure on that fish, you know, via the hook. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I do that. And I know a lot of people laugh about that and say, well, it's supposed to be a circle hook. I didn't think you had to do that. Well, the beautiful thing about triple threat hooks is, yeah, if you look at them, they do look like a traditional circle hook. But for I don't know how they do it, but anyway, so they tell you could fish this like a circle hook, which I do, and you can also fish this like a J hook, which I also do. So we all know with the J hook, you got to set the hook to drive the hook home. I've had it a lot of times where if I just reeled down on the fish, and I've actually fought the fish all the way to the boat, I actually put him in the net, but the hook would be just caught on the back side of the tooth patch. So when that happens, you know, you take a big risk. So I always want to give it that little extra to drive that hook home, and then I found that it is actually penetrated either on the very top of the top of the tooth patch, or it'll just drive itself behind it, and then, you know, of course, go through the nose and stuff. But that's just something I've noticed out of all the fish that I've caught with these hooks. And that my hookup ratio to put in the boat ratio went up significantly compared to the Gamakatsu circle hooks I've been using. Like you know, I love the hooks. I love them hooks, but man, I lost so many fish on them hooks. I mean, I'm talking good fish on them hooks. And that was the one thing that I didn't like. But okay, so moving on from there, so what I also do is, again, my leader line, I keep it between 30 to 40 or 38 to 40 inches, and that's all year. That's all year. I don't do nothing different with it. You know, and I know a lot of people out there, they'll change their leader length depending on time of year, weather, whatever. And that's fine. You know, like I said, if that is something you have 100% confidence in, then by all means, I mean, continue to do that, or, you know, do it yourself, or however you want to, you know, go about that. But me, I leave it the exact same all year. If I have to, like, let's just say if I'm anchored up, right, or spot locked, or whatever the case may be, and I know that I'm fishing, you know, pretty tight to structure or whatever, and I know the fish are, you know, there's a lot of known information here, but if I know the fish is, you know, they're not really motivated, they're not moving a whole lot, they're not doing a whole lot of anything, they're just kind of chilling, well, then all I got to do is I slide this up, you know, about midway, less than midway, so that way it'll kind of dangle down, but I'm not laying in the bottom. And because even, you know, and I'll tell you, back in the day, I was just a Carolina rig guy, just to get me a big old weight and then a hook about right here, and I caught a ton of fish like that. But I've noticed since I started doing this dragging deal, and then I also, like I said, I use these no matter what, like anchor, dragging, doesn't matter, that if I can just keep that, well, here, this is how I look at it, and it may not be anything significant to anybody else, but you know, I go through the trouble of catching, you know, the prime bait, whether, no matter what the bait is that for that time of year. And then I'm gonna bring it out here to a place like this, and I'm gonna throw it right in the mud. All right, got it. Maybe that's how them catfish feed, but I think it would stay fresher longer if it wasn't just laying in the mud, you know what I mean? And that's just my thinking. And like, again, I could be completely wrong on that, but that's just something I've thought of, and I obviously work real hard to not have that happen. But anyway, yeah. So we'll go back to this. So I also use these floats. Now these are EVA floats. There's actually a couple different companies that make these, or that sell these, and they're great. I like them as opposed to the regular styrofoam floats, because one like these, I've caught multiple fish on, and as some of you guys know that use the styrofoam floats, you know that they tear up pretty easy. Man, I got that sun on the camera. Let me get this thing turned. Sorry about that. I was like, man, the back of my neck's getting hot. It's like, oh yeah, because the sun's directly in the camera, so that means it's on my back. All right, we should be good now. But, so yeah, like I said, there's a few different companies out there. There's a couple that I've bought from. I've bought some from Ironside Catfishing. He's actually got one of my my signature floats. That camouflage float they got is my signature float, and that was a color that me and him come up with, and I love it. I love it. And then of course we got these bigger ones. I think I picked these up, or got these from a Mid-Atlantic Catfish Company, I think is what it is. So, but then there's a couple other people that are selling these now too. So it's kind of cool to have options. I like having options. I don't know, as far as the catfish industry, we'll talk about the corporate side of things. I don't know if they like competition or if they like options, but me as a consumer, I love having options. So it gives me a chance to you know, kind of support everybody, you know what I mean? Especially if they sell something that I'm interested in. So I like doing that. I don't like having you know, monopolies, so to speak, and that's one of the biggest things about this I see today as opposed to 20 years ago as far as catfishing. We have got a ton of options out there, and it's awesome to see. But yeah, outside of that, that's the setup. Well, you know, I'll talk about my planer boards, which I already showed these off. Of course, I go with spread them. As you know, I used to make my own, because the reason why I made my own, you know, because I seen the prices of these things, and I'm like, golly, you know, I'm not gonna spend that kind of money that I may do it once or twice and never do it again. You know, that was the one thing I was not going to do. So, but once I got into it, you know, I made my own boards and I started dragging. You know, of course, I went through the evolution of plexiglass to then aluminum to, you know, then, you know, me and Wesley sitting down one day and coming up with these colors. These are the Armed Forces boards that I use, and so we've got them in OD green and tan, which is awesome. You know, of course, it matches my new rod, as you guys know by now. And so we use that, which I'll you know, for those that have had that question, you know, when we get the dragon, I'll do we'll deploy one out, and I'll show you how it works. But anyway, so I think I've covered the intro to all this, and you know, the different weights and stuff like that. But like I said, I'll go back to the dragon weights. I think it's key to have them two styles, regardless of what style or who makes them. I think it's key to have both styles. I found it to be very, very instrumental for me, you know, to know exactly what I'm fishing. So if I'm wasting my time on a mud flat for no reason, and I can tell because this thing here is not doing nothing, and well, ain't no point, right? Ain't no point in fishing it. But anyway, so I picked this spot, which this spot here, we have fished here before, and I'm not really concerned about catching fish right now. I'm just, you know, I'm wanting to demonstrate exactly what I do. But this spot here, it has a little bit of everything, right? So where we're gonna start, I'm gonna get close to the bank. Well, there's it's not chunk rock, but it ain't pea gravel. It's rock. So you'll be able to see the feedback on this weight as opposed to this weight here, because I'm going to kind of put them side by side, and I'm going to have the camera on them, so you'll see the difference. But I know for a fact that there's rock right here. Then it's a big hole. Then we're going to come up on a mud flat, and then then it's just a slick mud bank. So we'll be able to watch that. Now outside of the 1 or 2 little logs that we're going to come over, you'll see that, but then you'll see a lot less activity on the rod tips once we hit that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get the boat backed up. We're going to get these rigged up, and I'm going to toss them out. I'm not going to throw no planer boards out yet, because I want to let you guys see what I'm talking about as far as these two, the action of these 2 different weights. So let me go over here and get this. Well, I just got to go straight over, but let me get this boat a little bit closer. And boys, it's going to be hot today. So let me get this one out. And to drag, I mean, it's really nothing to it. All I do is I'll just make a cast. I threw it further because I know we're going to dump off in this 60-foot hole. And that is the other key thing. If you know, like the path you're going to be dragging, if you know you're going to have deep holes, well, you got to compensate for that with the amount of line you have out. So that's one really good tip. And then it ain't nothing more than just lock the reel, set it down, let everything get tight. I'll put the stick style weight on this one, and then like I said, we'll be able to watch how the rod tips react different. Okay, so let me go ahead and get you guys a little bit closer. So you can see already how this rod here, how you can see it like ticking a little bit more, because it's giving me a harder return from the bottom. Where this one over here, you could kind of see it also a little bit, but it's not as prominent as this stick style weight. So that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing I wanted to show, is like that one's just kind of slinking over everything, or this one is it's going to stop on the back side of it, then pop over top of it, which lets me know that, which I know for a fact there's already chunk rock here. I know that for a fact. So that's what it's demonstrating right there, is that it's gonna, as soon as it, like you got a rock, as soon as it comes and hits that rock, well then it has to drag up over it, like the entire thing, then it's gonna fall over, where that one is just gonna, just keep moving over top of everything. So the way it's acting, I know that we got, the chunk rock, which I've scanned it 100 times, but that most of them are, they're about like this. They're not huge, they're not super huge, not boulders like we would find back that way. So but that's just kind of the biggest thing that lets me know. Like that one there, you can see it just kind of, it's doing a little bit of stuff, and every now and again it'll kind of slow up, but this one is more prominent. Like I said, I get a lot more feedback off this rod with that weight than I do with that rod and that slinky weight. But now to say which one goes to this stuff better, it's hard to say. It really is hard to say, because I've used them both in every situation I could possibly think of out here, and I've made it through a lot of stuff with both of them, and I've also lost a lot of both of them. So it's just hard to say. So, but I do believe if I have to give anything an edge, just a very slight edge, it's going to be, the Carolina Lake weight style, slinky weights. So that's if I have to give something an edge, that's going to be the one that I give the edge to. But anyway, we'll let these continue to go. We'll get to the mud. Once we get to the mud, that way you can see what it looks like, and then that way you'll know it's a soft bottom. That's pretty much it. This indicates a hard bottom of some sort. And then if there's I guess I could say that there's 2 things you pick up from this. When it's acting like that, it's a hard bottom. It's a hard bottom. And then we go up to the mud, which we will be here in a minute. Then you could see that it's a soft bottom. You could tell that, and that's going to be, if anything you pull out of this particular section of the video, is if you can determine what is a soft bottom and what is a hard bottom, because you can see it on the graph too. They say a lot of times when it's a real dark red, even purplish on top, it's a hard bottom. When you get to a softer bottom, it's going to be more of a bright yellow type thing. I've watched 2D sonar for years, and a lot of times that's, you know, I guess there's certain settings you could do it to make it 100% accurate, but I don't go off that. Now see, you can already see that, you know, they're both not even, both these rods, the baits ain't even, you know, 4 foot from each other. So it's hard to say what will make it through the best. Okay, so I'll take this time here to talk about speed. Okay, so people drag at all different speeds, right? So I've seen people drag up to if not more than in a mile per hour. But what I have found with all the dragging that I do, the optimal speed is between 0.3 and 0.5 mile per hour, right? So I kind of like, I honestly, the closer I can get to 0.4, the better. It kind of seems like the optimal speed. When the current really starts to pick up, when we start getting pretty good current, you know, I may back it down to, you know, try to stay around that 0.3, maybe even sometimes 0.2 if it's an area that I know is pretty good, and I like letting the baits just kind of slowly ease forward, you know, because if we got decent current, and of course, you know, obviously if I'm down to the bottom and I can hold everything there, that's the speed that I like. But typically the optimal speed is between 0.3 and 0.5. You know, some people, like I said, some people do 0.6, 8, you know, or up to 1 mile an hour, and that's good. You know, I have drug at 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, but I have found I catch way more fish in that 0.3 to 0.5. And along with this dragging stuff, there's I know I've went over this before, but I'm just going to include everything in this video that I possibly can. That what I'll do is if I, you know, I'm watching the graph, I'm looking at my map, and then we'll say if I hit, you know, let's say if I hit two fish, like bam, bam, you know, whatever. Well, then I immediately spot lock my boat, and providing we got current to where it keeps all the boards spread, you know, keeps the boat positioned where I need it, I'll immediately spot lock the boat. So what that'll do is that, one, it'll allow me to fight the fish in, but two, that's a good area. That just means that there's multiple fish in that area. So I'll want to stop the boat, let the bait sit there for, I don't know, I'll let them sit there for 10, 15 minutes before I continue, you know, going forward. That has created multiple more fish that I put in the boat when I do that, because if you get, like I said, you get bit over here, you get bit here, then I automatically spot lock the boat, and then I let my baits kind of sit there. The other question that I get too is that when we're talking about rivers now, lake guys, I think you pretty much just drag into the wind whichever direction it's coming at you. But on the river, you kind of always want to go. You want to drag against the current, or you want to drag against, or in the opposite direction that the current is. Even if there's current or not, you want to always drag that direction. I know I was talking to some guys. They were trying to drag with the current and not having very good success at all. Well, because two things, it's hard to maintain board distance when you put planer boards on, and you're kind of at the mercy of whatever the current is at that point. A drift sock won't help you, nothing to help you. But if you put out a drift sock, then like I said, we got current, and let's say we got a north wind, which you've seen me do a bunch of times. I'll throw out a drift sock so that way it helps combat the wind pushing me faster than I want to go. And then of course we've got current that's going to stop. That drift sock is going to cup that water, and it's going to slow me down. So all that kind of helps. And you can obviously see it all. What we'll do is we'll look at the rods again. So this is the stick weight rod. When everything's settled down, you can kind of see it's not really doing a whole lot. It's not really, you can see where it's kind of sticking in the mud and kind of popping free. It's not doing a whole lot, not like it was earlier back there where we were coming through the rocks and it was just, constantly doing this. And of course that one's doing the same thing. It's just kind of, it's almost lifeless, almost. As opposed to this one where, like I said, when it kind of slides forward, it'll fall into a soft spot of the mud, and it just kind of sticks for just a second, and then it pops free, and then it'll do it again, then do it again, and do it again. So that's what tells me that that is a soft bottom. Yeah, since I've kind of demonstrated that about being able to tell the difference using the two different style bait or weights, it really does make a difference. It makes a huge difference when you're trying to learn a new spot. And like I said, it makes it even more critical that if you catch fish, now you know what to look for. Like, almost you could use this knowledge to also help pattern fish. And once you can figure out how to apply this to patterning fish, then it makes things so much easier. So like, I could take, and a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times it'll actually, like, let's say if you go out on a Saturday and you just have a phenomenal day, but you remember, okay, the depth of water, the water temp, the weather patterns, or all that combined, along with, well, what kind of bottom were them fish sitting on? Well, I remember that I caught 3 fish when the old rod tip was just bouncing its butt off because we was going through a hard bottom. So I know if I come out Sunday, I know that, well, let's go try to find us a hard bottom somewhere, or a stretch that has hard bottom. And a lot of times that works, you know what I'm saying? I know it don't happen every single time, because it dang sure don't happen to me every single time, but it happens more than it doesn't. That's, I guess, my whole point. So I could take that knowledge to the next day and immediately go to an area that I know has a hard bottom and just pick up right where I left off the day before. And then if, like I said, if not, then okay, we're going to transition somewhere else. But now we're going to get into the whole planer board thing. Okay, so on these planer boards, just like every planer board, you're going to have as you look at it from the back of the boat, I'll do it that way. You'll have a left board and a right board. The reason you can tell is because, obviously when this is out, this arm's facing in, which means it's going to be on the left side. This arm faces in, which means it's going to be on the right side. They're simple enough. I know a lot of people, and these are some of the questions I get, and that are, these guys that are just starting to get into it. It's very, very simple to do. None of this is actually overcomplicated. It really isn't. I think in a lot of ways we overcomplicate things ourselves. I think that's kind of the biggest deal. So I think that one's, I told you I seen that structure, so I'm hoping it makes it to it. I don't know if it will or not. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll put a board on this rod, and then I'll show you, the difference of, how far I can actually let that rod go out, how far I can have that bait over there. So I'm going to show you that. So we'll just say we just casted it out, which would be like any other rod, you just cast it out however far you need to, depending on your water depth you're getting ready to cover. And then they'll always have a wrong one. But they'll always have a line clip. Wesley sells these with a different style. I'm not a big fan of it, so I always go with just a regular, sinker side clip. And you just clip it over your line. And then obviously this clip goes towards the rod tip. So like with these ones, when they make a couple different ones, they got the ones that you can lock down, and then you have to actually physically unlock them, when you're fighting a fish, which is something I don't want to do. So that's why I like using these. So whenever I get a bite, I just, it's just me and the fish. But all you do, you just, let it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let a little bit of line out, lock the reel. And once that line gets tight, what it's going to do is it's going to pull that board out, which in turn is going to it's going to track my bait further out once we get dragging far enough. And it's the exact same thing with your right hand boards on this side. It's the exact same thing. So you can already see, let me get the board here. So you can already see how it's wanting to track to the left. Now let me speed the boat up some, because we have no flow, so that kind of sucks. But I'll speed the boat up so it'll want to track further. But you can see we were, as you look down the rod, that line was over here, and now we're tracking it out this way, which I don't have very much line out. So what we're going to do is we're going to let some more line out. I'll probably just do another rod length. I'll lock the reel, then we'll watch that board. As soon as everything gets tightened up, everything, you know, you see how it's wanting to pull. It's wanting to pull further to the left now, and then we could, you know, like I could get it. I could almost get it to. I bet I could touch it on the bank over there. Now I don't want to because it's, you know, that's a good way to get hung up. So I'm going to let it go a little bit further. I'm going to go another rod length. And we'll lock it. And we'll see how much further it goes. Because if you remember, we were kind of right in line here, then we started here, then we started here, now we're out there. And it, obviously the further you let the line go out, the further your board is going to want to track over that way. And that's how you get your spread, right? So that's how you can have a short board, then you can have a long board. And, you know, same thing on this side. You can have a short board, you can have a long board. So all that gives you, like, and you could choose how far apart you want everything too, because it doesn't have to be, you know, 100 yards out that way or whatever. You could run them 25 feet apart, you know, if you want to, if there's a very narrow section that you want to try to cover with as much bait as you can. Or you could, you know, like I said, really spread everything out, you know. I mean, I've had it up to where I'm covering 100 yards at one time, you know. Obviously you still got gaps in between them. Now the other thing I've seen too is there's guys, they'll run like, man, they're running 10, 12 rods, and I don't know how they do it. I struggle just running, you know, 2 planer boards on this side, 2 planer boards on this side. I think it's more than enough, but them guys, they make it work. I don't know how. They've got some sort of magic. I'm sure they know, and they do a real good job with it. But now the only problem is, now that we've got, like I said, that planer board out on this rod, now I can't see the return on the bottom with that slinky weight. But that's why I always keep one down the center. I can move this back over now, but that's why I always keep one down the center that has nothing on it except for the weight, and that's it. That's why. So that way I'm constantly, you know, getting feedback of what kind of bottom I'm coming across. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over where we would drag. So now I got you on the big screen here. I know there's a small glare, but so anyway, where we started from, we started right up here, right? So where if I seen an area like this, we'll just weave them back up even further. If I seen an area like this, especially this time of year in the heat, you know, then fish are going to want to maintain a relative close distance to comfortable water. Well, to me, that's comfortable water. Anything down about that 50-foot range is comfortable water. Now, these fish would be sometimes right here, or they'll be right here on this secondary ledge, or they'll be up on this flat before the main ledge, right? So if I was fishing this, which, you know, I have, is I would take my boat right down through this secondary ledge. The reason being is because now I can have a couple baits out here, and I know that from my location to here, we'll just say it's, we'll just make a guess. We'll say it's 50 yards from where my boat location is to here. So again, I will let that board go out as far as I need it to, and that's something you adjust as you're fishing, right? So you'll adjust that. I don't know a lot of people that do, but I do. And so I would adjust, if I'm coming up across this, I would adjust that board to come out here till I know where it's coming through here. Then my inside board on that side, I will adjust that to where I'm hitting, you know, kind of like the edges of this. And now I'm already coming down this secondary ledge, right? So my rod straight out the back is going to cover this. Well, then I can have my other inside board on the right side come across this, and then I can have my furthest board right here on the bottom of the ledge here. But, you know, like I said, you just got to kind of adjust that by letting line out, letting, you know, reeling line back in. That's how you can adjust that. And so that's how I would fish that area. But where we started right back here, and then we come across this here. And the only reason why I know that, or reason why I did that, because I know this here, this whole little spot right here, because this hole gets washed out, you know, whether it be from current and barges, that hole gets washed out. And so what that does is it's a lot of rock right through here. So I wanted to demonstrate how the two different weights do that. So I think we're here now, but even this hole, I'm going to drag this little, this is what I would call like a canal almost, you know. So everything will feed into this hole via this spot right here. So we took the boat right down through here and went right down the center of it. And then so we're here. Now, as you could tell, now we're coming up on that flat. You can see where the contour lines come out, and we're coming up on this flat here where it's relatively just the same depth all the way across the bottom of the river. This is a real muddy, slopey bank right here. I've fished this before, and I've caught fish on it, but you know, sometimes fish prefer them just slick mud banks like that because there's nothing on it. There's no structure, there's nothing on it. It's just a slick mud bank. But you know, if the fish were on flats like that, this would be a perfect one. And of course, the same thing, I would move out to where I could spread all my boards out to here and then be able to drag this whole area. Now on the other side of the river, which is another good spot, you can see where you got a small hole here, and then you come up on a, you know, a hump here, and you got another small hole here, and then it comes back up again. Now a spot like that is perfect when they're sitting in the holes, because if the fish is here, he doesn't have to go very far to come up here to feed. You can go back down, go back up here, feed, and go back down. You know what I mean? So you don't have that far to go, and that's typically where you would find fish when we start getting into, you know, the hot summer months and stuff like that, especially during the day, midday. And the same thing with this hole here. Now the last few trips that I was doing, all them fish, so we're going upriver this way, but these fish were on the back sides of these holes here. They were just kind of, as it starts to dump off into the hole, they were right in that area. And it was kind of neat, and then I replicated that in several holes. Then of course, you know, I would just keep going, you know, in and out of these holes. That'd be a drag. But the other thing it would be too is if I know I was coming out of this. Okay, so like I was saying, my camera got too hot. But anyway, so what I would do is if I know that I was coming out of this hole, and I was going to come up on this little hump between these two, well, I would actually swing the boat out just a little bit more so I can get more of that flat, and then leave a couple rods, you know, closer to this side. So it's not like you're just going to run straight down something and that's pretty much it. I consistently, like, I'll run over here, I'll come back out here, I'll run over here, you know, I'll just, you know, that, because what that does is that'll give me a really good idea of where these fish are sitting. If I'm catching more fish over here on the bottom of this sloping bank, well, then I know I need to concentrate more on that side. If I know that as I'm going in and out of these holes I catch more fish, well, then I'm going to concentrate more on that side. So it's just a matter of finding, you know, where them fish are. So like when you get a really big hole like this, because you can see it stretches for a while, right? That's a pretty good little spot. But I still wouldn't just throw everything in the center of that and go, right? So even back here, I would start to consistently try to, you know, get a board to hit this ledge, maybe up on this flat, and then, you know, just kind of go back across it, because you're still going to maintain baits, you know, all over this area. And then you will, again, develop a pattern, see where them fish are, and then, you know, that's how you would work that. But you could take that, and I mean, pretty much apply that anywhere. You can. So, but that is the biggest thing that I do that has really created me a lot of success. We're actually going to the bank right now because I've been too busy talking, not paying attention. But like I said, that's what has created me a lot of success, is just not getting focused on one thing or another, but constantly, you know, changing what I do, because I'll tell you, you know, what I do starting off sometimes never works. So I've got to do a 180 and figure something else out. Or I immediately just hammer on something, you know, first thing in the morning or whenever I, you know, finally get started fishing. And then I just consistently replicate that pattern everywhere I can. And a lot of it, like I said, I've said this before, a lot of it's having a good map. If you can look at a map like that, be like, okay, man, that looks exactly what I'm fishing right now. Let me run to that and you know, fish that. That's what's going to help you better understand where these fish are at that given time. So like I said, it's not going to happen every single time. It's not going to happen every single day, but it will, you know, will give you a tool that you can use. So I guess to wrap all of this up, the biggest thing I wanted to cover was, you know, when it comes to, you know, even dragging weights, man, don't get stuck with one style dragging weight. I would say both of them have their place, and I use both of them equally. And for one reason or another, you know, because of the type of structure I'm fishing, or, you know, a lot of times it's which one do I have the most of that I can afford to lose. Because I drag some stuff that most people wouldn't, and it's for that reason, because if I can ever make it through it, then you know, I have a pretty good chance of catching a good fish out of there. And then also you know, my setup. Well, there's a bite right there. But also going over my setup, the things that, you know, I like, is my go-to type stuff, and, you know, just the basics on how to run planer boards. It's like I said, it's really not that hard. It's way simpler, way more simple than I think most people make it. But, you know, like when you start running multiple boards and stuff like that, okay, now you got to put some more thought into it, but the concept's still the same. You hook the board up, you let as much line out as you want. You know, you can run an inside board, outside board, you can run 4 boards like I do. But like I said, these guys that run, you know, they run 6 to 8 boards. That's, all right, well, that's a little above me. So that's still yet something I've got to learn, but I don't think I'd want to do something like that, because it's just, I know I've had fish pick up my outside board and run across 3 lines, and God, I would hate to have them run across 6 lines, you know, so. But it's all about your preference, all about what you want to do. It's all about, you know, what works best for you. I really hope this helps. I know, like I said, I've been talking about doing this video to some of y'all for a while. I'm sure I missed something. I'm almost positive I missed something. But I wanted to get the heart of it out there. So again, if you have any more questions about this stuff, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I'll answer them as best I can. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a great big huge nutshell. I just wanted to try to get that out to you guys, and hopefully answer some of the questions. Again, if I didn't, you know where to ask them. And so yeah, it's what I do. This is exactly how I do it. What I do today is what I've learned from somebody else. What I do today is, you know, little bits and pieces of other stuff that I learned from somebody else, then I apply it to mine, and then I just kind of, you know, I've got my own little system, I've got my own little way of doing it. It's similar, but in some ways it's probably a little bit different. So my whole point of this, my whole point of the channel really, is to help you guys out. I mean, when it comes to the catfish game, I've hit my peak, you know what I mean? And I want everybody to feel that. I want everybody to know that if you just put the time in, you put the work in, man, I'll tell you what, great things will come. That I can assure you. And if I can help with these little videos like that to help you kind of hone a little bit of a, you know, the little bit of a skill you needed to maybe give you that little extra something, then cool. I'm proud to be able to stand up here and do this. So, but anyway, with all that being said, I really appreciate you guys watching this one, and I'll catch you on the next one.